through all this reading, and I don't recall, maybe either I read it and it didn't register at the time, but I've been wanting to ask, are you also a lucid dreamer?
Yes.
Ah, nice.
To be a dreamer in a shaman, at least in the shamanic tradition I'm from, you would need to be able to lucid dream.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I got to a point, it's interesting, since I've been working nights, I was getting to a place where I was probably about 75 to 80% when I wanted to lucid dream, I could.
Right.
But since I started working nights, and it's been going on, 5, 6 years now, I've lost it.
Well, I have ambivalent feelings about lucid dreaming, I should say.
I love it because I like to fly.
Oh, I love doing it. It's great fun. And as a dreamer of a certain tradition, there's a protocol to be used in dreaming for calling certain teachers and ensuring safety and all these kinds of things. But I always just want to go flying.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it's my thing too.
But my ambivalence comes from the fact that I think, dreams are incredible messages from psyche, from our soul. And what blocks those messages a lot of time in our waking reality are our beliefs and our conscious mind, which is a very valuable thing to be walking around and driving cars with, So as much as I learn an enormous amount in lucid dreams, I'm also aware that the downside is that being awake in the dream means to some degree that my ego container is awake. And so I'm only going to get the information that I'm sort of capable of asking for and hearing and whatnot, versus the highly, extremely symbolic kind of dreams where I'm, like most people, not aware that I'm sleeping and dreaming, but I do tend to remember them. And then that often offers me information that I couldn't access in a lucid dream, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it does, because then you to kind of formulate a question, or you have to use that part of yourself, or sometimes it's too high for a question.
Or maybe the question that you are preoccupied with in a waking dream, as you are in your waking everyday reality, is not really the important question in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
I could say happily that I do lucid dream, but I don't lucid dream all the time, and I certainly don't see that as a goal.
Right. Yeah. I must say, I do miss the flying. I love the flying. There's nothing better than flying.
Yes, and here when I'm in Toronto, my inclination is to fly out over the lake always.
Yeah. Have you ever had a negative experience while lucid dreaming?
Yes, I've been physically hurt, actually.
Oh, okay.
And woken up bleeding from that, which is not a good thing.
Yeah. Now, can you talk about that?
Sure. I think the trick with lucid dreaming is that, I actually have met people who use lucid dreaming to step into other people's circles and to minimally bleed off the energy from other people, which is no better than doing so in waking reality, probably even worse because people are somewhat defenseless if they don't have knowledge of what's going on.
Definitely.
But nothing can really hurt you in a lucid dream unless you buy into the reality of it, which is an interesting analogy for some of what happens in life, although I would still contend that if a car hits me, whether I buy into it or not, my body's going to have an impact.
Yeah.
In the dream, that's not true. You have to buy into it. The difficulty is if there's a situation that's extraordinarily frightening, fear will not only mean you start to lose the lucidity, but it becomes very difficult to hold on to the fact that you can let, say, a blow somebody's directed at you go straight through you. If your fear level goes up fast enough, it will have an impact.
Right.
If you're lucid dreaming strongly enough, it will have an impact on the physical body.
Yeah, I had an experience where I was flying, and this is he's kind of I've had him on the show about close to half a dozen times over the years. I've been doing this show now, almost 10 years, I guess 8 or 9 years. And he lives in California, and he's a lucid dreamer. And so I thought, well, I'll go down and see if I can find Dr. Taylor. So off I started flying, and somewhere over the Midwest in the States, I'm flying, and I'm clipping along pretty good. It's a blur.
Yeah.
And I fly over this field, and in this field, in a grid pattern, are copper poles stuck into the ground, almost like antennae.
Yeah.
But as I fly over, it instantly brings me down to earth.
Right.
And then I'm like, what the heck just happened? And then this guy started walking towards me. He's wearing I'd recognize him today. He's wearing a cowboy hat and like a cowboy type shirt.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, I can't let him see who I am. And boom, I woke myself up immediately.
Right.
But I was like, holy cow, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, there's people out there that really know a little bit what they're doing, and they're trying to mess with people in a big way. Lynn was just going, if you believe it. I don't think that stopped me dead in my tracks.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there would have been ways for you to instantly get out of that, but the shock of knowing that something had impacted you outside your will in a lucid dream
yeah, see, that was
probably meant that you weren't thinking about, oh, no problem, I can just,
spin.
put myself in another whole part of the globe.
Yeah, instantaneously, yeah.
Right, so that's the problem. As soon as there are things to be reasonably cautious and if not fearful about. But the problem is as soon as the fear goes up, the consciousness goes down.
Yeah, good point.
As in waking life.
Yeah. Wow. See, talk to people about lucid dreaming. Very few have even had those types of experiences. So I'm not to say that, gee, I'm glad you've had them too, but it's nice to know that I'm not just the only one that's had those kind of weird experiences in lucid dreaming. I thought
a lot in recent years about what really is the purpose and does it serve any purpose, lucid dreaming? And I think one of the big things that it serves is the way you come to consciousness in a sleep dream and the way you lose consciousness is very much a kind of reflection of how you lose and gain consciousness in waking reality. So it's really a mirror of that for you. And if you want to walk through your life conscious and awake of yourself and your surroundings and what's going on there, the dream is in a sense a kind of heightened state of practicing that, which is why it's so interesting to see how fast we lose that when there's even just a little bit of alarm or fear. Yeah, exactly. We got a little bit of the person. We know you've written like several books: The Invitation, The Dance, The Call, Discovering Why You Are Here, What We Ache For, Creativity, and the Unfolding of Your Soul. And I would like to ask a bit about your name, if that's okay. Yeah. Your maiden name is Oriah House. My family name is House. That's my birth family's name is House, which of course nobody had ever heard of until the television show. Yeah. I used to say when I was making reservations, house like in the building, and now I say house like in the doctor. The Mountain Dreamer, how did that come into being? Well, actually, Oriah is not my birth name either, so let me just back up here. When I was very ill with chronic fatigue, and this was 30 years ago, and I had a wonderful doctor, but we didn't know what it was, but he kind of guessed what kind of thing it was. And at one point, I had a dream of these old women that I call the grandmothers, and they said to me, part of your healing is you need to change your name to Oriah. And I woke up and I told my husband at the time, and he said, oh, I hate when people do this kind of thing. And I said, yeah, me too. I'm not going to do it. And then the next day I said, no, I have to do it. So I've been Oriah for, this was before my oldest son, who's turning 30, was born. So, oh, wow. So that's Oriah. And then Mountain Dreamer was the medicine name that was given to me by the shaman to whom I went for a healing. And he told me my medicine name was Mountain Dreamer, and it meant one who liked to find and push the edge. Now, I used that name in ceremony, and because poem, The Invitation, originally went out to people who I did ceremony with, I had signed it Oriah Mountain Dreamer. I'll tell you the truth, I probably, if I thought that hundreds of thousands of websites were going to put it up, I wouldn't have put Mountain Dreamer after it because it leads to all kinds of misconceptions. But that's the way it went into the world, so there it goes. Wow. See, it's when and this is why I'm constantly saying this, but why it's so important just to be who you are right now. Yeah. I think this is a perfect example of what can happen when we constantly go back to that about living in the present, and it's called the present because it's a gift, but it truly is. Yes. When you live in the present, which brings me to a question about being in the present. Why is it so hard to take the blinders off and truly see the present? Well, I have to say that I'm a little ambivalent about the have to be in the present. Not because I don't think it's true. I mean, that's where we live. It has, unfortunately, like most things that are true, has become a little bit of a platitude that may or may not, what happens to any kind of cliche is it tends to lose its meaning. So people will say to people in pain, well, you just have to be in the present moment. Well, the present moment for somebody in pain sucks.
Tell me about it. I can relate.
That doesn't mean they can really get out of it, or they probably could with drugs or a whole variety of distractions that we use. And most of those give, a hangover and consequences that aren't a good thing. Mm-hmm. I say most because I did work with sitting meditation with a Buddhist teacher where Molly Swan, where I was in an enormous amount of physical pain at the time, and I was just staying with it and with my breath and in the present. And finally she said to me, there is a role for skillful distraction. So I think when you're present is truly painful for a variety of reasons, it helps to have a little list of skillful distractions, and maybe that's going for a walk. So a skillful distraction is something that in fact gives us a bit of a break from the pain, right, without giving us a hangover, So 1 hour of watching a comedy show on TV could be a skillful distraction. 8 hours of channel surfing is probably not skillful distraction.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably just plain numbing out, and you're going to get a hangover energetically from doing it. So part of it is discerning the difference. The thing about the present moment is the great gifts that human beings have, and like all gifts, it has a double edge, is that we create meaning in our lives from the stories that we tell each other and ourselves. So whatever is happening to us in the present moment includes our story of what has happened in the past. And there's a lot of folks would say, the goal is to simply drop all of the story. I'm not certain that's true. I think the goal in part may be to see the story, to bring to consciousness the unconscious stories we're telling ourselves, and to, with some degree of consciousness, begin to create the meaning in our lives by consciously telling ourselves, telling the world, a story that's not a pie-in-the-sky fantasy, but a story that's based on our experience, and both inner experience and outer experience, and creates meaning. And that's what we do. I would say that's what makes human beings, and so that always involves drawing on the experiences of the past as well as our dreaming for the future. Now, where we tell the story is always in the present moment, whether it's out loud or unconsciously, because we're only living in the present. But those stories, even when I write a story, a piece of fiction or nonfiction, I'm drawing on all the knowledge and all the experience that I have to bring that story to life in this present moment. And hopefully, when the reader reads it in their present moment, it will be brought to life also.
Yeah, and resonate.